Hello everyone, this is Tribecast episode 35 and my name is Marina. You know, I really like how this episode turned out. I started the recording this week, this Monday, with an interview with Taina Ketola, who has been watching the emerging of Tribe Tampere startup ecosystem and who is now leaving Tampere for her new job outside, but, well, she'll always be a Tampere person and a Tribe person for us. And the other interview you'll hear today is a complete newcomer to the community, but she is already that much involved. Her name is Kaya Brandt and she comes from Germany. So let's just cut the long story short and listen to the interviews. So hello everyone, and my first guest for this week is one of the people for whom I'm really grateful for believing in Tribecast when it was a very early stage podcast, wiping up my nostalgic tears. Hello Taina, thank you very much for your enthusiasm about a small independent podcast from Tampere and supporting Tribecast into growing something bigger and cooler, which is a continuing project. And please, may I ask you to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Well, thank you for having me here. My name is Taina Ketola, and I come from this startup ecosystem, and I have been working this since 2017. What point I come from? I come from public sector point. I have been working in Council of Tampere region for like almost 5 years now. And my latest job was this Startup Alliance, public sector organizations cooperation, how we can help startups and startup ecosystem to develop more bigger and more efficient.
Right. And I know that you wrote a book. It's not the first time we're talking on Tribecast about books, but I guess it's the first time I actually read the book before the interview. So at least I kind of know what to ask. I have one a bit off-top question. Your book in its very title is called a playbook. Is it some kind of a term I missed in my life, or why is it a playbook?
Well, before I have been in teams that we wrote this kind of handbooks. And as my husband is basketball coach, every time basketball teams and coach go somewhere, they have this playbook. In the playbook, they have the tactics and strategies, how they can play their own game and how they can win games. So that's why I was thinking that, hey, we need in cities and regions, we all need this kind of playbooks. So that's where the idea came from.
So basically we're now going to understand the startup ecosystem as some kind of a game where we have different positions and we all, play together in order to win this competition.
Everything is game and everything is play. And I think the tactics that we have in this playbook. For example, this podcast is one of the tactics. I introduced this podcast so that how people could know more what's happening in startup ecosystem. There has to be some communication, and I find that this kind of podcast is the best way to give the real independent voice from the ecosystem.
Thank you. That's what we're trying to do here with the Tribecast team. Basically, as far as I got, your book is about the cooperation between the public sector and the startup ecosystem. Let's probably start with some definitions. So how do you understand a startup and how do you understand startup ecosystem?
Well, for example, startup, it's a company. It's quite new. Mm-hmm. It's under 5 years old. It's trying to grow very fast. Those are the three definitions that we have. We have in the book, we have more definitions. But that is that we have to understand that startup is a bit different like other companies. Mm-hmm. Normal company is like when you have flu, but if you have startup, you need more better health advice than, and I don't know if I can say it in this way, but it needs special services and knowledge about a startup. It's something different. The startup companies are dealing with global issues. Many companies are basically local, but startups needs help in global business, and they have to understand how business is doing in different parts of our planet. So that's why I think that public sector has to understand how unique our startups are and what kind of unique services they might need.
So why do you believe that startup ecosystem should be supported? I mean, It might be easier for people of a more traditional approach to business or to economics. It might be more understandable for them that, okay, we support small business, a small business grows, we have our revenue, we go in pension happily. Why do we need to support startups who are more problematic?
It's like if you have a lively startup ecosystem, it welcomes other businesses there too. In new kind of cities, it's part of the brand. So that if you have lively and very fruitful startup ecosystem, because startup ecosystems are related to other ecosystems, so that's the way how you can build your other companies as well, very international. So I think that's the one reason. And of course, we in public sector, we think that if we have good companies, we have good taxpayers, and we have better services for mankind. Because in startups, there's always this fact that I like is that many of them would like to save the world and try to solve the problems that are very close to all of mankind.
And then I would say that in my understanding, startups have this struggle towards the quality issue. Because if you're small, you have to really stand out to be, sold out.
Yeah.
So what are the ways you see how public sector can support startup ecosystem? What are strategies?
Main thing is community. And as we have found out here in Tampere, we have this tribe community, Tampere tribe community. And that is the key element for whole ecosystem.
You start from community, not from financing, for example.
Yes. If you have community, if you have people who wants to come to do things together, like start to do events, start to collaborate together and help each other. That's the important. And as I have these roles for the ecosystem, there was this one role that there has to be like one person who gives the faces for the ecosystem. But as I have studied and seeing how Tribe goes, I think that there has to be no one person or two persons who are the faces of the ecosystem, because I think in Tampere and in our ecosystem, Tribe is the face. So it's more than just one or two people. It's the atmosphere and the trust that this community has among, and that's the. But what about the other things that public sector could do? I think one of the issues is the monitoring, so that it's not so easy to do the monitoring of startup ecosystem. So public sector has ability to do different kinds of macro level monitoring. So I think that is one point that public sector could do. And of course have different kinds of events like we have seen in Tampere.
All right. Have you attended Stream Startup Festival this year?
Yes, of course. And the first one, of course, yes.
All right. Have you enjoyed it?
Yes, I like the atmosphere and what I have been thinking that because of the climate change and so the place, the Hiedanranta and Stream, they really need to get some kind of award for to be the sustainable event, because everything was made by thinking the climate. So I think that was something that I really liked.
Okay, at least the construction team did their job very well. I think the Stream team will be grateful to hear that, because they did put a lot of effort into the event. And I have a question about monitoring. How do you ensure that monitoring does not become controlling?
Yes, that's a good
Because I think that too much of management kills the creativity.
Yeah. The monitoring, what I think in this point is very open, and the monitoring goes from different layers. So that monitoring means like we monitor the system, but we don't hide anything. It's visible. So these are the main points that how I think that the public sector should do the monitoring. And there is different layers. There is monitoring that we monitor what kind of services we have in our startup ecosystem. Then we do the monitoring about the organizations, what kind of organizations are helping startup ecosystem. Then we do monitoring about the startup itself, what kind of verticals we have there, what's happening, for example, like in health sector, so that we can see. And it means that it's knowledge management. yeah, it's related to that. Not just monitoring the way like you described that,
Okay.
but
So
it's,
more about what's happening than who's doing what.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, got your point. Right, thank you very much, Taina, for this interview. I think we're out of time for today, and you have a busy day today. Thank you very much for having time for this interview. Thank you very much for being with us, and you're always welcome again to Tribe Tampere community, to our events.
Thank you so much. And now I'm leaving another city, but I'm staying in Tampere, and every people here, you have been so nice to me, and I hope all the best to the Tribe community, and I hope that you all grow, and I hope that in 5 years we have unicorn that is coming from our startup ecosystem from Tampere.
Okay, so let's go work on that. This is Tribecast, episode 35, and we're continuing this week with having one more guest, who is a very newcomer to Tribe Tampere community, but we are already amazed by the energy this girl is spreading to all the projects she's in. So, please welcome in our cozy studio in P47 a participant of Sustainability Startup Weekend, Stream Startup Festival, and a new intern to Business Tampere, who is still looking for more things to do in the community. Kaya.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Would you tell us a few things about yourself? By the way, let's go back in history. How did you end up here?
Oh God, that's a really good question. Yeah, about me. I'm Kaya Brandt. I'm a student from Hamburg, Germany. And I am here in Finland because, as you just said, I'm an intern. And it's part of my studies, actually, to do an internship abroad. I was looking for an internship here, and I stumbled across the Tribecast podcast, and I reached out to you because I found it to be so interesting what Tribe does, and that's how everything got started.
What exactly are you doing with Business Tampere?
I'm working for the startup program, but also for the smart city program. So I'm in 2 different teams, supporting 2 different teams, and I'm supporting them mostly so far in marketing, communication, and I will most likely support them also a little bit when it comes to international relationship building.
Okay, do you have an experience of startup ecosystem from back home?
I would say that nearly all my experience so far in business has been in the startup field through a really, really good friend of mine, Anna Frost. I got this big field when I was 15. When I started working for her, she had a startup. And so this was always really close to my heart. And I think it probably just also goes back to my childhood. My brother really likes to tease me with me wanting to do my own little sale of stones that I painted myself when I was 5 years old. And from then on, it always continued that I was looking for projects. I was looking for things to do. So I think this startup entrepreneurship spirit has always kind of been there.
So in your understanding as a very much of insider, what's the difference between Finnish and German startup ecosystem?
Oh, wow. There is a lot of differences, I feel. First of all, I feel that the Finnish startup system is still more open than the German startup system. I feel that the German startups often already get this elite, vibe to them, which I think is sometimes really unfortunate, as it makes it harder to get in there. And maybe also makes it seem not that achievable anymore for other people, or it seems like such a big task that they might be afraid of entrepreneurship. And since I arrived to Finland, I feel that my view on entrepreneurship changed a lot, as here the community, at Tribe at least, is very, very strong, very supportive. And it seems way easier somehow to get in there. You feel more inspired, and everybody around you keeps inspiring you. And I feel like it's so much giving and receiving that, it has a whole different vibe to it.
And it's kind of obvious that it was your first Stream Startup Festival this year. Have you been to big startup events before? And what's your feeling about Stream?
I actually haven't. So that was really exciting for me to be part of it. I was the social media team lead, which I really enjoyed. It was a really, really nice task, and I had a great team. I was working with great people. I feel that the whole Stream volunteer team was just amazing. So it was my first one. And even though, of course, it was hectic, I loved that. I loved that this hectic feeling was more of a feeling of excitement and wanting to get things done. So it was great. And also just to see what the community is able to do. We had 750 attendees, I think.